Hello, everyone. My name is Terrence Tarver. I'm a second year student, PhD student within the counseling psychology program here at UTK, and I'm also a practicum student here at the Student Counseling Center. And today I'll be presenting on perfectionism, whether it's a friend or a foe to us. So, what is perfectionism? Perfectionism is a refusal to accept any standard short of perfection. Stober and Childs best define it as a person striving for flawlessness and setting excessively high performance standards, accompanied by overcritical self evaluations and concerns regarding others' evaluations. Whenever you see an error, you are the first to jump on it and correct it. If something does not conform to your approach, it will not be acceptable. And this can also make it difficult to work with others. You either do everything well or you do nothing at all. Everything in between is a no go. So, how do we recognize perfectionism? So, there are a few ways that we can recognize perfectionism as we've outlined here. So, being highly conscious and hypercritical of mistakes, aiming to be the best in everything you do, even if it is something that you are not interested in, spending a copious amount of time to perfect something, even at the expense of your well being, setting absolute ideals, for example, only having black or white thinking with no gray area in between, being your harshest critic. You beat yourself up over the smallest thing that goes wrong, mulling over outcomes if they did not turn out as you envisioned, exhibiting defensiveness towards criticism, and having a fear of failure because they suggest imperfection, only caring about achieving the end goal, paying no attention to the journey. An all or nothing approach, for example, I'm a success or I'm a failure, and being conscious of any situation which might give others the perception you are not perfect. So there are a few origins of perfectionism that we have outlined here, starting with society. Many times in society, we see success stories of successful people, and we think that they did everything right within their lives. They made the right moves at the right time, at the optimal moment. Rarely do we ever get to see the trials and tribulations, the struggles, the bumps in the road that these people have gone through. And this projects a mentality within our society that success means doing everything correctly, when in turn it means to learn from your mistakes and to become better from them. We also have a culture or cultures that you identify with, and that may also project this identity of perfectionism that you must be the best at everything you do. We also may have family that project this idea as well, whether it's your parents, whether it's your elders, loved ones, things of that nature that may also project perfectionism, and that the only way to do it is the correct way. We may also have teachers, coaches, and peers that also help to instill this idea of perfectionism within us, whether we're performing a task, getting ready for a big game, for a big performance, for a big test, whatever the case may be. And then eventually we'll have this idea within ourselves that if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure. And so for y'all, I have a small activity that I'd like to do with you all. So before we get started, if you don't have anybody already, I will ask everyone to grab just a piece of scratch paper and a writing utensil. And I'll let's give you about 30 seconds to do that. Once you've gathered a piece of scratch paper and a writing utensil, I'll ask you to take the piece of paper and draw a horizontal line down the middle of it to split it into, excuse me, not horizontal, vertical line, to split the paper into two sides, a left side and a right side. Once you've placed your vertical line onto your sheet of paper, I want you to move over to the left side of the paper. I want you to number 1 through 10 straight down. Now that you've numbered the left side of your paper 1 through 10 straight down, I'll give you 40 seconds to write your first and last name as quickly and as clearly you can 10 times on the left side. On my mark. Ready? Go. Pencils down. Now I want you to take the next 30 seconds to analyze any initial thoughts, reactions, or judgments that you have about the test that you just did. Noting any judgments about your writing. For example, I don't like the way my eyes are shaped. I could have done something better with the P. Just make a note of any thoughts, reactions, or judgments that you may have. And I'll give you 30 seconds to analyze those. Now I want you to move over to the right side of your sheet of paper. And again, I want you to number it 1 through 10 straight down, just as you did on the left side. I will again give you all 40 seconds to write your first and last name as quickly and as clearly as you can. However, this time, you all will do this task using your non dominant hand. So if you are left handed, you will now write with your right. And if you're right handed, you will now write with your left. Again, you will have 40 seconds to write your first and last name as quickly and as clearly as you can. On my mark. Ready? Go. Pencils down. Now, just as we did with the first half of this task, I want you to analyze any initial reactions, thoughts, or judgments that you have about your work within this second half of the task. And I'll give you all 30 seconds again to analyze. So the judgments and thoughts that you may have had regarding this task are indications of how we give ourselves feedback about our efforts. For this task, you didn't have any guidance or practice ahead of time, and it's not important to your future. For example, you were not graded on the task, there was no award, no medal, no trophy, and there was no achievement for the task. Ask yourself, what kind of internal dialogue do you have for other more important issues within your life? For example, your self worth, your self image, your expectations, and your goals. And also ponder this question: do the judgments that you have regarding these ideals need to change? So now we will watch a short clip from Dr. Brene Brown about perfectionism.
Let's talk about some of the most common examples of armor. You were talking about the armor that we put on to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think the big three are perfectionism, numbing, foreboding joy, and there's also cynicism, cool, and being critical. So let's look at them. Perfectionism. How many of you struggle with perfectionism a little bit? Okay, so my favorite story is that someone sent me an email one time that said, hey, I know you have a book on shame, not so interested in that, but if you ever write on perfectionism, I can't wait. So here's the secret. When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun, and fear is the annoying backseat driver.
Say it again.
When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun. We struggle with perfectionism in areas where we feel most vulnerable to shame. Does that make sense? So we're all comfortable saying, yeah, I'm a little perfectionistic, which is code for like I do things really well. But I'm not comfortable saying I have shame. But perfectionism, what is that? I call it the 20-ton shield. Here's what perfectionism really is. It's a way of thinking that says this: if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, I can avoid or minimize criticism, blame, and ridicule.
Whoa, that's good.
All perfectionism is the 20-ton shield that we carry around hoping that it'll keep us from being hurt. When in truth, what it does is it keeps us from being seen. And so we had a great talk about what's the difference between perfectionism.
Yes, because somebody on my staff had the nerve to tell me that I was a perfectionist. And I absolutely denied that. And you stood by me. Thank you very much. Because I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a person who strives for excellence and requires excellence. There is a difference, is there not?
There is a difference. Here's the difference. Because sometimes I'm a healthy striver.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm a perfectionist. It depends on if I've got a worthiness crunch going on. So healthy striving is internally focused. It's I want to do this and be the best I can be. Perfectionism is not about what I want. Perfectionism is exactly what will people think.
Yes.
So How many of you have driven by what will people think? So I'll give you a great example. So while we're taping these, my son's first day at school. And so, I'll be home tomorrow, right? It's not a big deal, but it's what will people think?
Is he in the first grade?
Second.
Second. Okay.
So he is monogrammed from toe to toe. His haircut, everything's laid out. His lunch will have some kind of vegetable fruit ratio that's perfect, because I am struggling a little bit.
Because you're here with me and not...
And what will people think?
What will people think? They're going to think, there she is up there with Oprah.
Yeah. Talking about how to be a good parent.
How to be a good parent.
Boots.
Yes, in her fancy boots. Yeah.
Right. But so I don't think, so the thing is, you can't ever do anything brave if you're wearing the straitjacket of what will people think.
So as Dr. Bryant pointed out, we have perfectionism versus healthy striving. When we look at the two sections, perfectionism and healthy striving, we see that they are at two opposite ends of the spectrum. For example, with perfectionism, you may have unattainable standards and goals. And with healthy striving, you may have self-made goals and an expression of growth. For perfectionism, we may feel weighed down by our goals out of fear that you will not exceed. On the other hand, with healthy striving, we may feel positively motivated by our goals and experience a sense of pride and joy as we work on them. Perfectionism, we may procrastinate for fear that it will not be perfect. And with healthy striving, we may take action while improving as we go along. With perfectionism, we move on to the next goal and feel that what we've accomplished is not enough. With healthy striving, on the other hand, we celebrate success and give ourselves credit where it's due. And then we move on to new growth. With perfectionism, self-criticism, view mistakes as evidence of unworthiness, preoccupation with failure and disapproval, and regret for past mistakes are responses to setbacks. With healthy striving, we may feel disappointment, but we also see it as an opportunity for growth and learning. We have self-compassion, and we learn from our past mistakes. And with perfectionism, the focus is on our work. While with healthy striving, the healthy focus is on relationships, rest, work, and other aspects of self-care. So now we will take a look at an interview from the late Kobe Bryant, and it kind of gives us a perspective from a healthy striver who faced setbacks and bounced forward.
I always think that there's two types of players who love to win and players who hate to lose. Which one are you?
I'm neither.
Meaning?
Meaning that, you know, I play to figure things out. I play to learn something, right? Because I think if you play with a fear of failure, or you play with the will to win, or that supersedes the fear of failure, I think it's a weakness either way, right? Because if you play with the fear of failing, you'll have the pressure on yourself to play, you know, to capitulate to that fear. If you play with the sense of I want to win, then you have the fear of what happens if you don't. But if you find common ground in the middle, in the center, then it doesn't matter. You're unfazed by either, right? And that enables you to really just stay in the moment, stay connected to it, and not feel anything other than what's in front of you. So, you know, I try to just be dead center.
So a lot of people in general are afraid of failure. How did you become one of those people who doesn't seem to be afraid of failing?
It doesn't exist. It's not existent. What the hell does that mean? Seriously, what does failure mean? It's not. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. What does it mean?
You're pulling a Jedi mind trick on me right now. I was like, does it exist?
No, I'm serious. Like, I'm trying to think, like, how can I explain it? So, let's use happy endings, right? And then we can relate this to failure, why it's not existent. Like, you know, everybody talks about, like, everybody wants a happy ending. right? Now let's go to the reality of it, right? Let's look at a fairy tale story. Let's look at Snow White. She gets a happy ending, she finds Prince, whatever, she goes on, she lives happily ever after. Well, I call bullshit on that because 2 months later, the fact is they had an argument and he's sleeping on the couch. Right? So the point is, the story continues. The story continues. So if you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, you know, if I fail today, okay, I'm gonna learn something from that failure and I'm gonna try again on Tuesday. And I fail, and I'm gonna try again on Wednesday. So it doesn't exist.
You know what? Should my ratings go in the tank? That's exactly what I'm gonna say to the bosses. Hey, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, but you know what?
We should try it again on Thursday.
If your ratings go in the tank, and you know, which they won't, but if they did, you had learned a valuable lesson. You had learned a bunch of ways of how not to make a show that sucks. So then the next one will be better than the last one, right?
So are you telling me then, let's just say all the career statistics that you've compiled, they all still exist. You still play for the Lakers, still, and all of that still happens. If you finished your career without a championship, you would not have looked at that as a failure.
No, I would have looked at it as being extremely disappointed because I had a dream and I had goals that I wanted to accomplish, right? And if I don't accomplish those goals, I have to ask myself why, right? So from my position, the reason why I would not have accomplished those things is poor leadership, failure to communicate properly with my teammates to put them in positions to be successful, lack of preparation, you know, all those things would be reasons why I don't win, right? So now, if that was the case, in my career, I have to sit and I have to analyze that, and then as I move and I evolve, you know, post basketball into business or whatever, those same weaknesses are going to reveal themselves there, right? So if I don't learn from that, I'm going to struggle here too, right? So I can take those situations and learn from those and have them, you know, make me a better person later in life. But if I don't take that stuff and apply that someplace else, then that's failing, which to me is the worst possible thing you could ever have, is to stop and to not learn.
So Kobe has created.
So the cost and benefits of perfectionism. As we see by the slide, there are both benefits and costs of perfectionism. However, the costs can usually outweigh the benefits. The benefits that you may see are motivation, determination, and persistence, achievement, good grades, and acknowledgement and praise. The costs, however, are self-critical internal dialogue, missing self-acceptance and love, losing focus on the process, limiting creativity and trying new things, and also that perfectionism is associated with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, disrupted sleep, and other mental health concerns. So there are myths about perfectionism, as you can see on this slide as well. So for example, people will think less of me if I'm not perfect. This is a definite myth. People that show unconditional love and regard for you will like you and love you and not think less of you because you make a mistake or you make a couple of mistakes. The second one that we see is without rich perfectionism, I will achieve less. This is also a myth. Many people, as we stated before, who are seen as successful have had many failures within their lives and their careers. And then the third one is once a perfectionist, always a perfectionist. This is also a myth. People have the ability and adaptability to be able to change their ways. People that have high levels of anxiety have the ability to lessen their anxiety with the proper means and the proper help as well. And we hope that this presentation will help those who may see themselves as perfectionists, tell them to start to change to get rid of those old ways of thinking. So strategies to promote healthy striving. So as you can see, some of the strategies that we have to promote healthy striving are evaluating standards and setting healthy goals, focusing on the process versus the outcome, setting time limits on projects, separating who you are from what you do, and building self-compassion. So evaluating standards and setting healthy goals. So when you're evaluating your standards, you want to keep these three questions in mind. How does having this standard help or hurt me? How will changing this standard better or worse in my life? And should I change this standard? And when we're setting goals, we want to make sure that we keep these things in mind. When setting healthy goals, they come from within and they are your goals. They are not detrimental to your health. They consider your personal strengths and growth edges. They are healthy enough to be followed by those you care about. So, when setting time limits, we want to consider these two questions. What is a reasonable amount of time to spend on this task? For example, if you have a project for a class, spending 10 hours on that project in one day may not be feasible, but spending 2 hours over a 5 day period could work as well. This will also allow you to have time to relax, to practice self care, and to revitalize yourself to work on other things as well. Also, is this a high priority task or a low priority task? Being able to separate your high priority task from your low priority task will allow you to see how to allocate your time towards those tasks that need more attention to those that need less attention. And then setting limits aids in freeing up time for other important areas of your life, for example, social life, relaxation, and promoting self care, and spending less time editing, tweaking, and second guessing yourself and your work. So, process versus outcome. A process approach is one that highlights the journey, the learning aspect, the things that go right or wrong, and embracing them. Outcome focuses on the results. For example, grades versus experience. When we focus only on our grades, we don't pay attention to what we're learning within the class. We miss out on the key important details within the class because we're so worried about making sure that we pass this class and make sure that we get an A in this class. So the steps to a process approach include looking at the way you provide feedback to yourself, utilizing perspective taking, practicing giving yourself helpful feedback out loud, and accepting feedback. So separating your identity and achievement. Your achievements do not make up your identity. The amount of success that you have, the amount of money, rewards, the number of goals you attain, anything of that nature does not make up who you are as a person. This is separate from your identity of who you are. You are more than just your grades. You are more than just your success. Your identity includes things such as honesty, integrity, determination, character, sense of humor, ability to collaborate, enthusiasm, work ethic, creativity, kindness, humility, and charity. So, building self compassion. So, with building self compassion, it involves acting the same way towards yourself when you are having a difficult time, fail, or notice something that you don't like about yourself or your work. Instead of ignoring your pain, stop and tell yourself, this is really difficult right now. What can I do for myself in this moment? And with self compassion, there are three components as pointed out by Dr. Kristen Neff. So the first being self kindness versus self judgment. So being warm and kind to ourselves when we experience shortcomings. Being imperfect and making mistakes are inevitable. Suffering increases when we judge ourselves. The second is common humanity versus isolation. So suffering and inadequacy are part of the human experience. We are all wired for struggle, something we will all go through, rather than something that happens to me alone. And then the final aspect is mindfulness versus identification. So taking a balanced approach to our negative emotions. So again, not suppressing them or exaggerating them. And also remembering that mindfulness is a non-judgmental state and is awareness without trying to suppress or deny them. And then as you can see, we also have a link here for self-compassion exercises that you may feel free to copy. And these exercises will help you to gauge where your self-acceptance and self-compassion is, and also help you to enhance these aspects as well. And so I'll give you a few seconds to copy down the address, take a picture of it, whatever you may want to be able to come back to it later on. So I'll leave you all with this quote from Brene Brown, which reads, "Wholehearted living is about engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. It is going to bed at night thinking, yes, I am imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that does not change the truth that I'm also brave and worthy of love and belonging." And that will conclude this presentation. I hope you all were able to take some things away from this presentation to address your own perfectionistic ideals and practices. And I wish you all a good day.